Join me to paint this easy winter landscape using watercolor. I begin by wetting about 3/4 of the paper. After wetting the paper, we are going to paint the sky with Prussian blue. For that, we are using a medium value of Prussian blue at the top. You can see that the value of the pigment gets lighter as I move downward because the amount of pigment on the brush also reduces as I move downward, and this creates a clear gradient wash that sets a calm mood for the whole painting. After painting the sky, I elevate the board on the sideways and wipe the excess pigment that collects near the masking tape. This helps to prevent the formation of any cauliflower effect. After that, I mix Prussian blue with a little amount of verdant green to paint the distant trees. The background is still wet. Now I sprinkle table salt on the sky area and on the distant trees. Next, we have to paint the foreground. For that, first I'm wetting the foreground area and I'm careful not to touch the horizon because it is still wet. After that, I use the same sky color, which is Prussian blue, to paint the foreground. Next, using the same mix that we used for the distant trees, which was made with a mix of Prussian blue with small amount of verdant green, using this mix, I paint the shadow of the trees that falls in the foreground. The trees that will sit in the foreground are not painted yet. Right now, we are only placing their shadows, and we will add those trees in the next step. Now I let the paper to dry completely, and once it is fully dry, I gently scrape off the salt. The next step is to paint the trees in the foreground. For that, I use a spray bottle to slightly mist the left side of the paper. I want you to make sure that the spray creates a fine spritz, but we don't want to wet the paper too much or form any pools of water. Now, using the mix of verdant green with burnt umber, I paint the foreground tree. I use a dark value for this mix and focus on creating the overall shape of the pine tree. After painting the tree, I sprinkle salt on it while the paint is still damp. Since we only added a light spritz of water, the paper won't stay wet for a long time, so it's important to sprinkle the salt right after painting it. I noticed that the pine tree looked a little off, so I adjusted it to give it a proper form. Now I'm repeating the same process, that is, I'm adding more trees just like we did before. If you notice the paper has dried, you can slightly dampen it on that area you want to paint using a spray bottle. One important point that you have to remember is not to spray the foreground trees we just painted. We want the foreground trees to stay rich and dark, so it's better to avoid spraying in that area. After painting all the foreground trees and sprinkling salt on that wet area, I allowed the paper to dry completely. Once the paper is completely dry, I gently scrape off the salt and we are moving to the next step, that is adding the tree trunks using burnt umber. After painting the tree trunks, we have to add the shadows close to the tree trunks. That is done using the mix of Prussian blue with small amount of Virgian green, and this new shadow should blend with the shadow that we painted earlier in the foreground so that everything looks natural and connected. The next step is to paint the deer using burnt umber. For that, I start by drawing a rectangle with curved edges for its body. Next, I draw a mirror image of capital letter C for the neck and add a small triangle for the head so the deer looks like it's looking backward. I add the ear and tail as you can see in the video. For the legs, I draw a hind leg like a less than symbol, a small line for the front leg, and that completes the first deer. For the second deer, I start the same way with a curved rectangle for the body. Then I add the neck and a triangle head which is looking forward, and after that I'm adding the ear and its tail as you see in the video. Now I'm adding the hind leg like a less than symbol and also painting the front leg using dark value of burnt umber. Using a lighter value, I paint the other two legs on the other side, and our second deer is done. Next, I mix Prussian blue with very little Virgian green to paint the shadow under both deer, softening the edges so that its shadow looks natural. And that's it, we have painted a beautiful winter landscape. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more watercolor painting content. See you in my next video. Until then, take care and bye bye from Prema.